day, students. This is Mr. Jibril Issa from the Department of Liberal Studies, Kwara State Polytechnic, Ilorin. I'm here to take BFN 112, that is Principles of Economics. We will be starting with the meaning and scope of economics. We will start with the definition. What is economics? Various scholars define economics as a discipline in different ways. The father of economics, that is Adam Smith, who everybody regards as the father of economics, defined economics as nature and causes of wealth of nations. That is, his own definition is limited to the nature and causes of the wealth of nations. That is how nations generate the income they spend and the nature of such incomes. Other economists came later, such as Alfred Marshall, to criticize this definition and came with their own definition. For example, Alfred Marshall saw economics as the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. Later, economists like Professor Lord Lionel Robbins, came to criticize this definition, which he said is limited to the definition is limited to causes of wealth and enjoyment of wealth alone. Therefore, he gave a more broad definition of economics. He defined economics as a science that studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Let me take that again. That Professor Robbins defined economics as a science that studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. This definition is broadly accepted because other definitions that are related to it, which define economics as a science which examines production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services, as well as the creation of wealth, is related to this definition. And from Robbins' definition, we can deduce certain things that, according to him, economics is a science that studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means. Ends, let's start from there. Ends. What does it mean? Ends means wants, human wants, human needs. All those things that we as human beings, we need to live comfortably on the surface of this earth. That is what he refers to as end. Ends, human wants. Now let's consider these wants. The human needs or human wants are so many. They are numerous. They are very many. They are insatiable, in short. That is, no human being have ever been able to satisfy his or her wants. That as you get one thing, you will continue to look for more. So that we have billionaires that still continue to work to look for more resources. If you need a car today, you get it. Tomorrow you will need a house. And once you get it, you need another item the next day. So human wants are so many. They are so numerous that they are insatiable. It is very difficult to satisfy human wants. Now, since human wants are very many, what do we do? And he said that, take that definition again, that science that studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means. Scarce means. This brings us to scarcity. Scarcity of resources. That resources are scarce. The wants are so many, they are numerous. And the resources available, that is the means available to satisfy these wants, the means available to satisfy these needs, these wants, these ends, are limited in supply. That is why we say scarcity. Scarcity means that the inadequacy of resources to satisfy human needs. That is, insufficiency of resources to satisfy human wants. So resources are scarce, they are limited in supply, and the ones we want to satisfy are so many. they are numerous. We don't know their number. What do we do as human beings? We make choice. We make choice. We choose out of these numerous ones. We choose those to satisfy based on the available resources currently in our disposal, at our disposal. What are we saying? That we have limited resources. For example, an individual consumer have a total sum of 10,000 naira, and that consumer needs items that ranges from items that range from pair of shoes, pair of trousers, a calculator, a textbooks, a phone. Let's assume that he needs a phone that costs 5,000 naira, and he also needs a pair of shoes that costs 5,000 naira, a trouser that costs 7,000 naira, a calculator that costs 6,000 naira, and currently what that individual has is just 10,000 naira. The only option available to that individual is to make choice, to choose out of these four ones which one to satisfy first. If not, the resources will be wasted. You know, as you keep the resources you have, especially money, the money you have, as you keep it to wait until the next day, some other less important needs might crop up, and then you find out these resources are wasted. Instead of you spending it on the more important needs, more important ones that you currently have. Therefore, you make choice. And what is choice? Choice is the act of selecting which of the numerous ones to satisfy first. So the individual make choice. You choose based on your income. For example, I mentioned that a pair of shoes that cost 5,000 naira, it could be the first thing you need. Acquire that, and since the individual is left with 5,000 naira, he or she can go ahead to acquire the next item, which probably is a mobile phone. And for the moment, this is where that individual stops until the individual gets more resources. Now, if an individual is to make choice, how does it choose? Do you just close your eyes as an individual to just say, okay, out of my wants, this is what I will purchase? No. You must have what is called a scale of preference. The individual is advised to draw a scale of preference. And what is the scale of preference? A scale of preference refers to the listing of consumers' wants in the order of their importance to that consumer. In other words, a scale of preference refers to the arrangement of consumers' needs, consumers' wants, in the order of their importance to the consumer. That is, a particular consumer have so many wants, as I mentioned earlier, that consumer needs a pair of shoes, the consumer needs a pair of trousers, the consumer needs a calculator, the consumer needs a mobile phone, the consumer needs textbooks, the consumer needs a wristwatch, the consumer needs a bag. All these are items that a consumer needs to arrange in the order of their importance to him or her. For example, the consumer can draw a scale of preference this way, that first pair of shoes, two, a mobile phone, three, a wristwatch, 4, a scientific calculator, 5, textbooks, and so on and so forth. Now, if this is a scale of preference given by an individual, what it's telling us is that the individual, once he have any money in his or her hand, the first item the individual will acquire is a pair of shoes. If that individual have any resources left, the individual will acquire a mobile phone. Then the next most important item to that individual after a mobile phone is a wristwatch, and it continues like that. Now, this scale of preference will help that individual to make choice easily. It's not going to be difficult. Okay, how much does a pair of shoes cost? 10,000 naira. A mobile phone costs 60,000 naira. The individual currently have 100,000 naira. That means you'll be able to buy the pair of shoes at 10,000 naira, mobile phone 60,000 naira, making 70,000 naira. The individual can go ahead to acquire a wristwatch, which probably costs 20,000 naira, making 90,000 naira. Now, he can also, because the individual have 10,000 naira left, if the scientific calculator costs not more than 10,000 naira, the individual can also acquire it. And presently, that's where he may stop. This is based on the resources the individual has. So, instead of thinking over and over what to purchase or to acquire first, the individual should draw a scale of preference. Drawing a scale of preference will help that individual to make choice, and making choice will help an individual, a rational thinker, to solve the problem that exists between numerous ones and scarce resources. But now, how do we draw a scale of preference? How do you determine, for example, that a pair of shoes is more important than a mobile phone? Or how do you determine that a mobile phone is more important than a wristwatch? How do you do that? You look at the opportunity cost or the real cost of these items. What is opportunity cost? The opportunity cost of acquiring a particular item is the alternative which a consumer has foregone. I take that again, that the opportunity cost of acquiring a particular item is the alternative which the consumer has foregone, which the consumer would have acquired using the same resources. An example is this: if the consumer is faced with the demand of a pair of shoes and a mobile phone, and let's assume each of these two items costs 20,000 naira, and currently the consumer have a total income of 20,000 naira. If that consumer decides to acquire a mobile phone instead of a pair of shoes, it means the real cost of that mobile phone that he or she acquires is the pair of shoe he or she has foregone. That if a consumer have a total income of 20,000 naira and the consumer currently needs a pair of shoes and a mobile phone, and it happens that each of these items cost exactly 20,000 naira. If the consumer decides to acquire a mobile phone instead of a pair of shoes, we are saying that the opportunity cost of the mobile phone the consumer acquires is the pair of shoe he or she has foregone. That is the alternative he could have acquired. Or on the other hand, if he decided to acquire the pair of shoes instead of a mobile phone, the opportunity cost of that pair of shoes he or she acquires is the mobile phone he or she has foregone. Because if not that consumer acquires a pair of shoes, he or she would have acquired a mobile phone. So the real cost of the pair of shoes he or she acquires is the mobile phone. That is the opportunity cost. That is the alternative he or she has foregone. You see, the 20,000 naira is just the money cost. In any case, money is not a commodity you are looking for because you want to consume it. No, you want to use it to acquire some other commodities. Therefore, releasing the 20,000 naira to acquire a particular item is not anything. But the alternative you could have used the same amount of money to acquire is the real cost of whatever you acquire, is the opportunity cost. Because, for example, if the consumer acquires a mobile phone, let's assume that consumer is a student, and the consumer acquires a mobile phone instead of a pair of shoes, and the consumer comes to classroom with bathroom slippers. You will just, mentally you look at the phone that because of this mobile phone, I don't have shoes like my colleagues in class. So the phone is costing you the pair of shoes. The phone you are currently holding is costing you the pair of shoes. It's because of the phone that you don't have pair of shoes. On the other hand, if you acquire a pair of shoes and left the mobile phone, each time you put on your shoes, and you cannot make, or you can't call your brothers or your relatives at home. You just, because of this pair of shoes I could not buy phone. So the pair of shoes is costing you phone. So the opportunity cost of that pair of shoes you acquire is the phone. The real cost of the pair of shoes you acquire is the phone you could have acquired, and that phone is the alternative for gun at the same time. Now, the point we are making is this: if you know the opportunity cost of the item you are going to acquire, you'll be able to rate them in terms of their importance to you as a rational thinker. That if I acquire a pair of shoes, I will not have phones to call relatives. Okay, on the other hand, I will acquire a mobile phone. I can manage with perfume, slippers, or the old shoes I have. So that you know that, okay, because of the phone, I will not be able to get pair of shoes, but I can manage. So you will now rate phone to be more important than pair of shoes. So knowing the real cost, the opportunity cost of all the items will help you to be able to draw your scale of preference. And now drawing your scale of preference will help you in making choice. And making choice will help you in solving the problem that exists between numerous ones and scarce resources. This way, as a rational thinker, your resources will not be wasted. The whole essence of economics as a discipline itself boils down to this point, that human beings faced with numerous ones and having limited resources. So that if you are able to follow these rules, making choice, that is drawing, knowing the opportunity cost of your item, drawing a scale of preference, and making choice, you will find out that the problem of scarce resources and numerous ones may not affect a particular individual badly. Now, defining economics, we say that Professor Robbins defined economics as a science that studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means. Is economics a science? Is economics a science? There have been argument here and there, and that science, economics, cannot be regarded as a science, so that's, it's a science. It makes use of scientific methods. Now, what is science? We can define science. Science refers to a systematic and organized body of knowledge which makes use of laws, rules, and regulation to analyze events which contain facts that are acceptable at all places and at all times. If that is science, we can also say economics is a science, because economics is also organized and systematic body of knowledge. And in economics, we make use of rules and regulations to analyze events and draw conclusions. But there are differences. For example, economists also identify problems, like scientists. At the beginning, they will identify problem that they state hypothesis. Like in sciences, they will state hypothesis, gather data. Economists go to the field and gather data, collect data, prices of commodities, quantities of commodities bought. Because of changes here, changes there, they will collect data. Coming back, you sit down and draw this data. Analyze this data. Keep the data, analyze it. After analyzing data, you test the hypothesis you made earlier. The hypothesis probably was that as a result of an increase in price from 10 naira to 40 naira per cup of rice, the quantity demanded in rice fell from 600 cups per day to 550 cups per day. This hypothesis will now be tested based on the data you have. Scientists also do this. Now, after testing this data, from there you develop theories. You draw conclusions and develop theories. These are scientific methods. But now, let's come back to the definition of science. We concluded by saying that it contains facts that are acceptable at all times and at all places. Economics differ a bit here from science. How? The results obtained from analysis of data in economics are not always the same all over the world, and are not always the same at all times. How? Look at science, pure science, natural science. A particular chemical may turn a black object to a white object, and the chemical behaves the same way 200 years ago and still behaves the same way now. The chemical behaves the same way in Nigeria, it behaves the same way in Ghana. But looking at economics as a science, you find that economics studies human behavior, as we said earlier. It deals with human behavior, how human beings behave in times of scarce resources, in times of numerous ones. When the prices increase, what do they do? When human beings get resources, what do they do? You find that human behaviors are different. Human beings don't behave the same way all over the world. And the way those who lived 200 years ago behave is not the same way those who are living now behave. Yes, the behavior is similar. There are rational human beings among them, but you find out there are differences depending on the prevailing situations in their localities and in their times. So that you find out that if you take 100,000 naira today, give to a particular individual, you find 2, 3, 6 months to come, that individual may turn that 100,000 naira to 200,000 naira or more, because that individual may go to business and make more resources. Take the same 100,000 naira and give to another individual. You will find out that maybe in the evening or by tomorrow, you will find him that in a public place enjoying himself, maybe in a beer parlor enjoying himself or herself, and by next week the 100,000 is wasted, is gone. So human beings differ in terms of their behaviors. So since economics studies human behavior, since economics deal with human behavior, since economics as a discipline analyzes human behavior, we conclude that economics is a science, but not a pure or natural science. It's a social science, since it deals with human behavior, and human beings are social animals. So economics, we conclude that is a social science. Let's look at some branches of economics. Macroeconomics. Macroeconomics. This is a term that is derived from the Greek word "pau," which means large. When you say macro in English, is something that is large. Therefore, macroeconomics studies whole economic agencies. It determines the whole broad economic. It analyzes broad or aggregate economic agencies such as national income, employment, exchange rates, inflation, and so on and so forth. That broad macroeconomic broad economic agents like national income, employment, exchange rates, national income, and so on and so forth, the things macroeconomic studies. Then we have what is called microeconomics. Microeconomics analyzes individual economic agencies. The scope of microeconomics is limited to individual economic agencies, such as the study of a particular firm, the study of the behavior of particular economic units, such as individual prices, wage, individual households, and so on and so forth. This is what microeconomics, as a field of study, that is what it analyzes. Method of studying economics. Let's look at some methods of studying economics. we have what is called deductive method of economic analysis. Deductive method of economic analysis. This method analyzes economics based on developing theories from the general behavior of economic units to individual behavior of a particular unit. That the theory, the method analyzes economics based on developing theories from the general behavior to specific behavior of a particular unit. The deductive method comprises of the following stages. It selects a problem. It will select a problem, a particular problem. For example, the problem may be in the area of poverty, unemployment, inflation, etc. It will narrow this down to a particular unit of the economy, maybe to a particular industry, to a particular firm. Now, after selecting this problem, it will formulate assumptions based on the problem so selected. It will formulate assumptions. How does this formulate assumption? That okay, generally this is how economics units behave as a result of this particular problem. Then it will go ahead to formulate hypothesis. Then after, what is hypothesis? Hypothesis will be that if this change by 2 units, the other item will change by 10 units. That is hypothesis. Then it will go ahead to analyze data collected to authenticate this hypothesis. It will go ahead to authenticate the hypothesis, whether the hypothesis is true. That is the final step. Now, the hypothesis that says if price changed by 10%, quantity demanded of rice, for example, will change by 5%. That is the hypothesis. The hypothesis will now be authenticated. It will be tested to see whether that hypothesis is true or not. So from there, conclusions will be drawn that this is how this particular economic agent behaves. What are the advantages of using deductive method? Deductive method is real in nature. It's a reality. It's something we know that is a reality that we all see, that even in our everyday life we make all these formulation of hypotheses ourselves and try in some ways to test them. It is also simple and easy process. Deductive method is very simple. You make deduction from general behavior of economic agents and draw a conclusion on a specific or particular agent. And it is a very reliable method. That is a powerful method. Deductive method is generally applicable. You can apply it. Then what are deductive method, I said it's a powerful method. It's a reality that in some cases that you may use. What are the disadvantages? Disadvantages of deductive method are that deductive method provides unrealistic assumptions. In some cases, assumptions are made from different economic agents, general behavior of economic agencies which are not realistic. Then apart from that, deductive method is very difficult to apply. So in some cases, it's not applicable generally. It can only be applied to specific units. And then deductive method is static in nature. It's very static. It's not dynamic. Then the next method of studying or analyzing economics is what is called inductive method. Inductive method is the opposite. Inductive method is the opposite of deductive method, because in inductive method, a particular economic agent is observed and analyzed from there, a conclusion is drawn that that is the general behavior of all other agents. So a particular economic agent is observed, data are collected from it, and that the behavior of that economic agent is analyzed, and from there the result is generalized to cover the remaining agents. What are the advantages of what are the stages of this method? One is also identify problem. That in the inductive method, you identify the problem. What is the problem? What is the general phenomenon in the economy, in the country? Then data are collected. Data is collected. You collect data. That is the second step. You observe. Then analyze this data, and at the end of the day, draw a conclusion and generalized. Advantages of inductive method. It is highly practical and realistic. It is more practical than deductive method, and it's more realistic. It's paved way for future studies. It is effective in statistical method. Then disadvantages. Inductive method is expensive. It's difficult to prove the hypothesis of inductive method. Inductive method is prone to misinterpretation. That is, it can be misinterpreted in some cases. Sometimes, again, another disadvantage is that inductive method may lead to uncertain conclusions. Another method of studying economics is positive method. Positive method. A positive way or method of studying economics is to be realistic and positively state that as a result of the change in price, for example, quantity demanded change. This is a positive and straightforward case. The opposite of positive method is the normative method, which deals with what should be. The normative method analyzes economics as a discipline by stating what should be, what is ought to be. That is, if the price change, demand is supposed to change. Or if the price change, demand is ought to change. If the price change, demand should change. This is normative method. So in conclusion, any of these four methods can be employed to analyze economics, depending on this prevailing situation of the analyst. Basic problems of economics, or basic economic problems. What are those basic economic problems? Human beings are faced with basic economic problems all over the world. If you look at it, one of the most important issues facing any individual or family is economic issues. How do I generate resources? The resources so generated, how do I spend them? How do I manage them to ensure they are not wasted? To ensure that the maximum satisfaction is derived from the resources an individual have. How do I go into production? Okay, commodities are produced. How do I sell them? How do I dispose them, and so on and so forth. Now, what are those problems a nation or a society could face? What are those economic problems that could be faced? One, the first problem is what to produce. What are those things to produce? For example, an individual wants to start business, or an organization wants to go into production of commodities in a particular society. What do we need to produce as an organization? Or a community even want to go into produce, what kind of commodities are to be produced? This will now depend on what will be the need of the people, where this factory or firm will be located at the end of the day. What would they need? Studies will take place to know, okay, we have young people or we have older people, we have students. What will students need? What will be their needs? Study this. At the end of the day, you will arrive at a conclusion that, okay, probably we will produce exercise books. The student here needs exercise books more than anything, or we may be producing school uniform. We have secondary and primary school students more in this community than any other group of people, and what they need is school uniform. So that conclusion will be made. Then after settling the problem of what to produce, you go to how to produce. How will production take place? What and what factors should be combined? What and what are factors of production inputs will be combined? What are the methods of production to be used? Is it intensive production? Is it intensive based production, where you use more machines than labor? Sorry, capital intensive production or labor intensive method. Capital intensive method, you use more machines, modern machines, but in labor intensive you use more labor, depending one on the commodity that is being produced, then secondly depending on the cost of capital or labor in the society where you live. In some cases it will be more advisable to use labor because labor could be cheaper and labor could be more affordable. For example, somebody that wants to go into farming in a particular society, and the person is thinking of using maybe a modern tractor or using labor. Now, first, tractor, that person may not be able to acquire tractor. Therefore, it's advisable to use labor, and labor could be cheaper than tractor, especially in the short run. And again, on the other hand, tractor may produce more than using labor. That is, capital intensive method will produce more than using labor. This also depends on if the commodity so produced can't easily be sold to make profit. After settling the problem of how to produce, you may look at the issue of for whom to produce. Who are you producing your commodities for? Who need them? And so on and so forth. So these are the basic problems economists face. Now let's look at different economic systems. Let's look at the following: the primitive economic system, the feudal economic system, the capitalist economic system, the socialist economic system, and the mixed economic system. Let's start with the primitive economic system. Primitive economic system is a kind of economic system that was practiced in ancient times, where societies use primitive methods and tools to cultivate crops and domesticate animals and hunt for food. At the primitive period, people hardly had large farms. They hardly have larger industries. Normally, they use primitive tools, sometimes stones, to kill animals that they will eat. They gather fruits and eat. They gathered fruits and ate. This was the primitive method. What are the features for primitive method? One, the period was characterized by hunting and gathering. That since at that primitive method, the population of the world was not much, individuals went around to gather fruits and kill animals and eat. Two, there were not permanent settlement for these individuals. They settle in places maybe weeks, months, or in some cases few years, and move on. Three, production was done, or whatever the gather was gathered for the sake of satisfying the immediate needs. What they need tomorrow, they look for it tomorrow. So this was the primitive economic system. The feudal economic system, or feudalism, what is known as feudalism. This was a period during the medieval Europeans political, economic and social system between the 9th and the 15th century. In this system, there were a class of people known as the aristocrats. They lorded over the rest of the people. The land belonged to them, that is, the land belonged to this noble class, the aristocracy, or the land belonged to them. They will now lease this land to the peasants to cultivate. Then the peasants will hand over whatever is produced to these nobles, to the lord, to the aristocrats. In return, the lords, the nobles, gave the peasants relative stability and security, and they gave them very little to eat just to sustain them so that they'll be able to work. What are the features of feudalism or feudal economic system? One, economic, political, and social institutions are not really different. They are not sharply differentiated. Two, society was primitive. Society was primarily divided into two main groups of actors. That the society was divided into two main groups of actors. That is, the lords, that is the nobles, the aristocrats, and the peasants, that is the masses. That is, on the other hand, you have the lords, the nobles, the aristocrats, that's on one hand. On the other hand, you have the peasants, that is the general masses, who work on the farms to produce for the lords and the aristocrats. 3. The feudal system prevented slavery. Every common man was under protection of the landlord, so it prevented slavery. 4. Loyalty was time related, with the show of courtesy to women, especially being ready to defend people who were in trouble. 5. The feudal system brought peace to the society through cordial relationship between the landlords and the peasants. Disadvantages of feudal system: it divided the society into two classes. The landlords, known as the bourgeoisie, that is the capitalists, and the masses. So it divided society sharply into these two classes. 2. Feudalism discouraged nationalism. It discouraged nationalism. 3. Feudalism made the situation of the peasants worrisome. Their situation was pathetic. It was appalling, because they work just to eat and find places to sleep. They own no property. All their labor is to produce for the landlords. The capitalist economic system. The capitalist economic system is defined as economic system where the means of production and distribution is owned and controlled by private individuals. That in capitalist economic system, the means of production and distribution is owned and controlled by private individuals. That in capitalist system, private individuals have the rights to own and control means of production and distribution. Private individuals, according to their interests and their means, they can own factories, they can own large industries, they can own a huge amount of resources. They go into production for profit motive, and they advertise their products, and so on and so forth. Capitalism is, in short, or capitalist economic system in short, is an economic system where private individuals have the rights to own property, to control the means of production and distribution. Features of capitalist economic system. 1. Freedom of controlling private property and ownership of means of production. That is one of the features that in capitalist economic system, individuals have right to own private properties, to own means of production. These properties, they use it as long as they are not violating any law. They use it the way they want. So that in the society, an individual could be very rich, can be a billionaire, than the other individuals can be poor. 2, in capitalist economy, there is freedom to own factors of production. For example, labor in capitalist economy, labor is a marketable commodity. A capitalist can buy the labor of an individual, and an individual can sell his or her labor. So there is this freedom to own factors of production. 3, capital can be accumulated. The individuals can accumulate their capital, they can accumulate their resources. 4, there is competition in marketing products in capitalist economic system, because there are different producers, individual producers of the same commodity. Now there's this competition and unhealthy rivalry among the producers of the commodity. So in the capitalist economy, there is competition and unhealthy rivalry among producers. 5, the motive for production is profit. In capitalist economy, the motive for going into production is to make profit. In capitalist system, no individual goes into production because he wants to satisfy the needs of the society. He goes into production because he wants to make profit. So the essence of going into production in capitalist economy is profit. 6, in capitalist system, there is branding of products and adverts. The same products is branded in different way by different producers, and there is advertisement of products to ensure better sales. So these are some of the features of capitalist economy. Advantages of capitalist economy. 1, efficient allocation of resources. Efficient allocation of resources. Since those who need resources want to use it to make profit, you'll find that resources are not wasted. You don't allocate resources for those who will not make the maximum use of it. So those who acquire it, they know they want to use it to make profit, and they know as they are making losses, that their businesses are suffering. So there is this efficient allocation of resources. 2, efficient production. Because of high competition, commodities are efficiently produced in order to ensure that a certain farm survives. 3, financial rewards. Those who go into production, those who own the means of production and distribution, they receive awards in terms of profits, they receive financial award. 4, consumers have the opportunity of choosing out of many products, because there is competition among producers. Different people go into production, and they produce the same commodity in different ways. So consumers have freedom of choice. They can choose out of these products that are branded in different ways. They can choose the best. 5, there is creativity. In the capitalist economic system, there is what is called creativity. That individual producers can create something out of a product that was earlier produced by other producers. They can turn it, they can brand it, produce it in a different way. There is creativity. Disadvantages of capitalist economic system. Capitalist economic system promotes inequality in the society. That is one major disadvantage of the capitalist economic system, that it promotes inequality. Some individuals will be stinkingly rich, while so many others will wallow in abject poverty. As I mentioned earlier, you see an individual could become billionaire. Maybe an individual with a wife and 4 children is a billionaire that live in a 10-room apartment. Then you see another individual that have maybe 4 wives and 12 children living in the 2 rooms. So the capitalist economy creates or it promotes inequality in the society. Some will be highly rich, they will be stinkingly rich, they will be stinkingly wealthy, while others will wallow in abject poverty. Capitalist economy also promotes unhealthy rivalry and competition among producers. Sometimes the competition to sell more of a product by a firm leads to unhealthy rivalry and competition that sometimes create crisis in the economy. 3. The capitalist economy also ignores detrimental external implications of the profits they make. That whatever damage that may happen in the society, they are after profit. An industry may be established or a firm may be established, and to make profit, you find out that the society is destroyed, degradation of the society, and so on and so forth. Deforestation here and there, just to make profit. So they don't care about the detrimental external implications of their production. The capitalists do not like the principle of redistribution of wealth because they feel they own means of production and distribution, and that whatever profits come from them, they should enjoy it alone. So these are some of the disadvantages of capitalist economy. Next one is the socialist economy. What is socialism or socialist economy? Now, this theory developed from the works of Karl Marx, who was a political economist that lives in the 19th century. Mostly he wrote a book that is known as Communist Manifesto. Socialism developed from this system. And what is socialism or socialist economy? The socialist economy is defined as an economic system where the means of production is collectively owned and distribution is done by the state. That socialist economy is defined as an economic system where means of production is owned collectively and the production is done by the state. It can also be defined as economic and political system where the means of production is owned by the government and means of distribution is owned collectively by the state. Features of capitalist economic system. 1. Collective ownership of collective ownership of resources. That is, collective ownership of means of production and distribution. That the state owns all the means of production and distribution. Whatever property that is produced is owned by the state, and distribution is done by the state. Resources are allocated based on the needs of the people. 2. Central economic planning. That the second feature of socialist economic system is central economic planning, because the government centrally have a committee that will plan how the economy in the socialist economic system will work. What responsibility should be allocated to social person, what resources will be allocated to social sector or to social group of people is determined by the Central Economic Planning Committee. 3. Non-customer preference or choice, that the goods are produced to satisfy the needs of the consumers in the society. So no customer will decide that I don't want this, I want that commodity. The fourth advantage is that there is fair distribution of income. Income is distributed fairly, is allocated based on the needs of the society. 5, there is absence of market forces determining the price of the commodity, because there is central planning committee. The committee decides what is produced, how much is produced, and the prices of such commodities. So there is no market forces determining the price of the commodity. 6, there is absence of unhealthy competition and rivalry and even advertisement, because resources are collectively owned. So those are the features of the socialist economic system. Advantages: 1, optimal utilization of resources. The resources are optimally utilized by the society to satisfy the needs of every individual. 2, fair and equal opportunity for every citizen. Every citizen is considered based on his need, so that if a driver have a larger family, he will be allocated a larger accommodation than his principal. 3, absence of trade cycles. Trade cycles that develop from market determination of prices are absent in socialist economy. 4, absence of classes in the society. There are not capitalist classes, both the classes of bourgeoisie, the masses, the middle income earner, the high income earner, the poor. All these classes are absent in the socialist economy. Disadvantages of the socialist economic system: 1, too much concentration of economic and political power on the state. Those who run the affairs of the state are concentrated with too much power. They have too much power on their hand, and they are likely to decide the fates. Few individuals are likely to decide the fate of the rest of the citizens. 2, there is absence of economic rights. Individuals in this country, in such a society, don't have economic rights to determine what they want to consume and what they want to produce. 3, consumers have no freedom of choice. Consumers cannot choose that I don't want to consume commodity A, I want commodity B or C. There is not that freedom of choice. The next economic system is mixed economic system. This is an economic system that make use of the capitalist system combined with some features of the socialist economic system. In other words, in mixed economic system, there is freedom of private ownership of resources, and at the same time, the government plays roles in determining and deciding in some cases. For example, individuals will have right to own means of production and distribution, but in some cases, government will set aside some commodities which will solely be produced by the government. And in some cases, the prices of some commodities will be determined by the government. For example, government can come in and determine the wage rate, what wage should be paid, our salaries, or determine the prices of some commodities. Features of mixed economic system: 1, there is coexistence of all the sectors. That is, you have capitalist features, you have the features of capitalism there, and there's the existence of the features of the socialist system. 2, freedom and control are joined together to achieve maximum results. That is, in mixed economy, there's freedom of choice, individual owns private resources, and yet government can come in and put control where it find out that problems are being created. 3, there's economic planning by government. Government plans the economy. 4, there's social welfare. Yes, governments will give individuals right to own property, but all those masses, the poor ones that don't really have resources, can't be given welfare. There's social security welfare. 5, there could be constant changes of economic policies in mixed economy. Advantages of mixed economic system. One major advantage of the mixed economic system is that it allows more freedom than the socialist system, and at the same time it allows government to come in to sometimes solve some problems. 2, mixed economic system have a high level of participation in terms of individuals participating and government coming in to spend, to impose tax, in some cases to solve some problems. 3, the combination of freedom and restriction is to achieve maximum, or is usually achieve maximum standard of living in the society. 4, in mixed economy, private businesses can decide how to run their businesses, and consumers have a choice, on the other hand, to choose from different products. Disadvantages of mixed economy. There is more emphasis on profit at the expense of the welfare of the citizen, because mixed economy is closer to capitalist system. Therefore, in mixed economy, profit is the major goal at detriment, at the expense of the citizen. There is generally high level of competition and in some cases mismanagement. The private individuals, the private owners of businesses are always engaged in competitions. And where government come in to set up businesses, in some cases you find out there are mismanagement of resources there. 3, in capitalist economic system, there is no equitable distribution of wealth, because private individuals are given freedom to own the resources. So you find out they are stickingly wealthy, and there are some individuals are poor. 5, in mixed economy, efficiency hardly occur in this type of system. Why? Because government comes in to control the economy, and sometimes government is involved in business, and you'll find out in most cases government businesses are not efficiently managed. So these are the economic system.